Good morning and welcome to Network Automation Day 4. Now see, in this Network Automation Day 4, our prime objective would be to talk about four major things. One, the requirement, that why do you really require these network management softwares. And then we'll be talking about, say, network management software, that which are the network management softwares, and in that we'll be talking about Ansible, we'll talk about Puppet, and then we'll talk about Chef. So that would be second, third, and the fourth point for today. Now when we talk about the requirement, say when the company is small, right? When the company is small and there are few devices and there is one admin, there is just one admin, nothing much to worry about, because say he'll be taking care of everything. He'll be defining all those configuration into those devices. He'll be taking proper backup, and whatever the changes which are to be made, he is the only person who will be making those changes. So in such case, there are chances of very less problems. That's not the case as number of admins they increase. Now as number of admins increase, someone has made change at some point of time, and if he misses documenting it or telling anyone that these changes have been made, and these things, they keep on happening in spite of all the strict rules that yes, there has to be a standard configuration, etc. But this thing goes as number of devices from few to they go to hundreds, they go to thousands, and as the admins they keep on increasing, there comes in fact a real necessity that there has to be a very standard system which should be able to handle all these troubles. So it's like, first there were some simple solutions. They said, let's create the logs whenever we make any of the changes, whether it is Windows or it is, say, Cisco. There is always a provision for creating logs. So they say when the logs are there, then it is easy to find that where the changes and what were the changes made. But then for these logs also, there is an element of human involvement. These logs, they won't be checked by themselves. There is an element of human involvement, right? A person has to sit and he has to really check that what really happened into all these logs. So then things were made still easier. Now that is what is called as the version control. Now in Windows, there is something like a provision that you create a Word file, right? You create a Word file, then you save it, and then you make some changes, once again you save it, you make some new changes, and then once again save it, again changes, and you save it. So finally you have got the same file, right? You got the same file, and then suddenly you realize, no, this was important, but I made the changes. Now classical example is, say you worked for a whole night and you created a very fine PowerPoint presentation. You created a PowerPoint presentation and that is having, let's say, 60 slides, right? And with good R&D you created it and you saved it under the name that my best work dot pptx. So it is ready. Now it happens like as you wake up in the morning, you get a message that yes sir, you'll be giving this presentation at say 10 o'clock in the morning, but it would be very nice if you can send us just initial 4 slides from your presentation, and we just want to put it as the introduction before you really start. So you say fine, that's not a problem. So I need to give 4 slides, first 4 slides, right? And that is having my introduction. So you'll open PowerPoint, and what you'll do, you'll delete, right? You'll delete last 56 slides, and then you'll do Control S. Boom, gone. Once you do Control S, because this Control S is something which we do so reflexly, once it is done, we understand the importance of what is called as version control, because the moment you did Control S, that entire effort was of entire night that has gone to waste. And now it is 8 o'clock in the morning, and you have got less than 2 hours to finish up everything. This is something which gave the concept of what's called as the version control. Version control means whenever you did Control S, it kept on saving that file. So actually you can go back in timeline, and you can say that yes, this is something which I really want, and you can then save that file with a separate name. This is like a lifesaver. This is exactly what I'm talking about, that in case of Cisco configuration, say same thing can happen. What I mean is that this is your router and it is having say startup-config, and router is working fine, and then you come up with some idea that yes, this is like I make some changes. Now if these changes are good, everything fine, not a problem, and you give WR copy run start, and this thing would be saved, right? This thing is saved. You made those changes into those running -config, and you gave copy run start, so that you have got a new startup-config. But in this case, when you do this, there is nothing, like only you know what you have done. Otherwise no one is knowing about what changes were made. So for such situations, right, you started doing one thing, that you always kept one ideal file. Ideal startup config is always with you. You made changes, and those changes, they were not good. Something wrong was going on. So you did one thing, no problems, once again replace it with this file, and system is running fine. Now for all such experiments, or I would say for all such managements, once again you have to do something what is like a per device manual configuration model, right? It is like per device manual configuration model. Yes, you are keeping all those ideal files with you, but once again, what if number of devices, they are in thousands? Now this would be like a huge library, right? You'll be having like a huge library with all the devices, R1, R2, R3, R4, R500, R600. That way it will be a huge library. And that also, if number of admins are more, so then there you have to create like a system that everyone follows this principle very meticulously. So one of the solution is that we start keeping central server, right? Let's keep a central server. So in central server there would be a folder. In this folder all your routers, let's say this is R1, R2, R3, right? So you keep their configuration over here as r1.txt, r2.txt, r3.txt. So you have got all those ideal files stored into this. Fine, nothing new. But then what if you implement what's called as the version control software? Version control software. Now say GitHub, right? GitHub, which gives you software as a service. Now it's like they give this service, it's both, it's free as well as paid, and both the services are there, and it's like an open source software. The advantage in this case would be that yes, the way you saved your PowerPoint presentation by going back into timeline because it was saving all the versions. So same way over here, in case if there is any problem, nothing to worry, it is this open source program which is keeping all the versions intact. So that's why it is your version control software, right? That is at GitHub. So thus on your central server, let's say you have got an ideal file for say R5, and that's your R5. So whether remotely or say over there into your physical presence, admin would be sending this ideal file and it would be going on to this router, and once it is running fine, you just go for write and you save it. Okay. Now about this configuration management tool, right? So this is like a very identical thing. A very identical thing is configuration management tool with central repository. All these functions whatsoever we talked about in the entire description, what we were talking about, this thing, it can be say summarized in this one simple phrase, that it is the configuration management tool which is needed, and it would be very nice if it is having central repository. Now the point is that how we actually make it. A very good thing is if we create something like login. When we do this login, so we'll be knowing even that also, that who has logged in and who has made those changes. But say when we say this thing, things look so good, right? Things look so good. Yes, everything is fine. Now we are satisfied. Now here is an administrator, right? And in good faith, but maybe because of some lack of knowledge, he makes incorrect changes, and those changes, they are uploaded and saved, and the system crashes. So in that case, yes, the moment we got this new idea, yes, this thing can happen, so we said yes, so then we require one more thing, and that is that this particular tool whatsoever we are using, it should even check the configuration. It should check the configuration before it really uploads, whether this will really work or not. And on top of it, in case if there is any problem, we should be able to go back. We should be able to revert. So the same way when we sometimes install the software, and in case if that software is having some issues, so it gives us the option that let's go back. So it goes back to the original state. At least the system is saved. Nothing wrong is happening to the system. That's okay, software was not installed, but at least it has not crashed the entire system. So such thing should be there into our networking configuration also, because now we are not dealing with 1, 2, 5, 10 or 20 routers. We are dealing with thousands of routers. So it means there has to be a system for this configuration, and a word or the terminology which is given, it is called as the configuration provisioning. It is called as the configuration provisioning. These words, they are the specific words because they convey some of the very specific terms. When we say configuration provisioning, it means it is telling that how to deploy changes to the configuration of device, right? So I'll just write down. So how to deploy configuration changes. It could be you have just made one change into the interface, that is IP address, or you have changed some routing protocol. And how will you really deploy these changes? And still better it should be that you make those changes into your configuration management tool, right? At your comfort, you make those changes into configuration management tool, and then those changes, they should be enforced onto your devices. This would be the core function. This would be the main function of our management tool. Okay, but then as we start making such tools, that greed increases. We say, okay, we are getting this function, but we want something more. And what that more is? Well, that more is, say, there are many devices, right? There are many devices, but now I should be able to configure these devices based on some attributes, right? Based on attributes. So what that attribute could be? It could be like, see, they say that I have got 100 routers, but the changes which I want, I don't want all these changes on all these routers. I want these changes on my routers which are from router 1 to router 10, because they are for my experiment purpose, and I want to conduct this experiment on only these 10 routers. Rest of the routers I don't really want to disturb. So this means we really want what's called as the grouping of devices. Grouping of devices. The same way as the Windows administrator would usually be doing, right? He'll be creating several groups. So there are, let's say, 10,000 users, but 10,000 users, it's not so that he's handling all those 10,000 users individually. There might be 20 groups, and he has put several users into all these groups. Now let's say this is group 1 and it is the marketing group, and he creates you create a new folder, right? You are admin, and in this you have kept several important documents which are about the product which is upcoming, and you really want that all marketing people, they should be having access to this. So all you do is you give the rights of marketing group on this particular folder. That's it. All those users, those who are part of it, they will automatically be getting that piece of information. So this is what is called as the grouping. So the way we group users over here, the same way grouping of all those devices, they are needed. Well, this is good, but then we said yes, we want something more. We want something more, and that is that whenever the change is made, we should be able to enjoy the right whether to accept or reject, and this thing should be individually on every device. Again, this is like, say we have got router 1 to router 10, so all those changes, yes, they were fired on this group. But then we say no, this router 3, this is something which I though it is part of group, but he should be having a different configuration than everyone else, so I don't want to impose these changes on router 3. In this group, it's like, say in marketing group, there are say 150 users, so everyone is given the right to read these documents, but then there is one U100. This particular user, he should be given right to even make changes into that, so he is different though he is part of this group. So same way over here, we should be able to decide that yes, whether these configuration and these changes, they should be going on every device or they will not be going to any specific device. So that is the ability to accept or reject these changes. Okay, then this, what we talked about, that in case if this configuration is rejected for any reason, whether there is a problem of memory, if there is a problem of CPU, anything, but in that case we should be able to revert to original, so that at least system should keep on running. There should not be a problem of system running once the configuration is there. Next, something which we have ignored. Let's say in Windows we configure those networks, right? We give IP address, we give subnet mask, default gateway, and then there is something like validate the change, validate the network, right? There is an option of validate. Validate means it is telling, let's check in advance whether this thing will work or not. That is what is called as the validation. So it will check that whether it will work or not. So in case if there is any issue, let's solve it right now only, so that we don't have to worry about that issue at a later stage. All right, so this is one more thing. Then we said that another thing is, let's say work is done, right? Work is completed, everything was fine, but we should be able to check, that things are okay, and if they are okay, happy. So you have made changes into that running dash config. Then we said yes, we want one more thing, right? See, one by one things are increasing, that demand is increasing. We said that you made those changes into our, say, running dash config, right? All those configurations from R1 to R2 and all those things, they came into, say, running dash config. The changes were made, but now I should be having complete control in a way that on which routers I want to run right and on which routers I don't want to run right. It means copy, run, start, that should be under your control. So there has to be a choice. So said okay, like Aladdin, he said okay, chalo, granted, this wish is also granted. Then said no, in that case I do have something more to ask. I want one more thing, that I'm fed up with configuring same things again and again. Means it's like router OSPF1 and then defining the network and defining the areas. This is boring. So many times the way we do, we say, let's say we have to create those slides, right? Let's say this is like network automation, say day 1, day 2, right? Day 1, day 2, day 3, etc. So obviously what we'll do is we'll save this thing, we'll make a change, right? And we'll write 2 over here and we'll save it under new name, and that thing is used as a thumbnail. That will be used as a thumbnail. What we have really done is we have created a template. So how nice would it be if we can create a template for our configuration files? We create a template for our configuration file, and these templates, they should be generated. These templates, they should be generated as per requirement, right? Let's say we want to configure OSPF, so then there has to be a template for OSPF. We just put IP address, we just put the, say, area, and we just define that what would be the say router ID, and that's it. Rest of the configuration should be formed by itself, and then we should be able to inject into the devices. So this would be very nice, right? The concept of template. And then we said that, okay, now when you are giving so many things, so then do one more thing. It was a long journey from step 1 to step 8. So I don't want to remember all these things. So can you do something like all those steps what we discussed above, right? They should be stored logically. So next time when I am configuring any new device, so there should be just one key, I just press it and all those things should be auto executed. And that also if needed. If I know that yes, my configurations are fine, there is no problem if I save them into my say startup config, everything is fine, so then let the whole thing get executed by itself. So these are the demands. So say many times it happens like that when we configure certain routers, the configuration is almost the same. Say we would really see that in case of configuration templates, right? So for example, we are configuring NTP or we are configuring say SNMP. So in this, when we are defining master and everything, so this is configuration is very similar on every device, right? On all devices, configuration is very similar. Say for example, you are configuring OSPF, right? You are configuring say OSPF, and we have got router 1, router 2, router 3. So what exactly we really define, right? If we make a template, and if this template is having all those variables, these variables, they are defining IP address, they are defining area, they are defining router ID. So then there would be like these variables, right? But these variables, their values would be different with every of the router. So we have got one template, and if we can create one variable file, right? See the concept which is getting developed. We have got a template and we have got a variable file, and this variable file, in one file only we are writing that for R1 will be serving these values, right? These values. If it is R2, so we'll be serving these values. If it is R3, so we'll be serving these values, and then they all are injected into these routers or devices. So it makes the entire management becomes much easier. Now let's see how this thing is really done. So here comes our first candidate of this configuration management, or I should say network management, right? We'll write it network management tool. It's called as the Ansible. We talked about Ansible a bit in our last session, right? If you remember, we said that it works on, say, it uses YAML and markup language. And what was it for? It was for data modeling, right? It was for data modeling. Now what this Ansible does, it uses a language called Jinja 2. And what it will do, using this language, it will create templates, right? It will create templates, and then these templates, they will be used. Now we'll see one example, and we'll actually create that template, and then we'll see that how it really goes. Say here is something like a Jinja 2 template. And the best part about this is that this is human readable. When we say human readable, means even if we have never configured anything, still we'll be able to understand every piece of it. And you will see that how fantastically it has been designed. And yes, we feel that actually this is to be done. This is something which should be done, because it makes entire process so easy that even if there are 50 routers, it would be a matter of minutes, and then everything would be configured. So let's say we are creating a template, right? So we say host name and curly bracket, another curly bracket, and then this is host name, right? And then there is some space. We say interface gig 0x0. So every router will be having this interface, but every router would be having a different IP address. So we write IP address and then this, and we say address 1, right? And then there would be some mask. So we say mask 1 and we close it. Then we say IP OSPF, and we want to give some OSPF ID, primary ID, again curly brackets, and we say area, and there is area, host name, this address 1, mask 1, OSPF ID, and the area. All these things, they are nothing but they are variables. They are variables. And now we make a variable file. So this is YAML variable file. Now how this thing would look for R1, it would look like, say, host name. So this is a variable and this is a value, so R1. When we say address 1, right, so that was the IP address, and let's put it like say 10.1.1.1. This was mask 1, so yes, we'll put 255.255.255.0, and then similarly say OSPF ID and area, etc. So it's like you say area and then you say, let's say area 10, right? And that's how it can be defined. Now see, it's so logical that in case if there is a interface gig 0 by 1 also, so obviously this gig 0 by 1 will be having a different IP address. So all we need to do is we have to just go back and into our template we have to define interface gig 0 by 1. Let's change it with some different color. Okay, gig 0 by 1, and because there would be a different IP address, so we'll say over there IP address, and then over here instead of address 1 we'll use address 2, and mask 1 instead of that we'll use the mask 2. Rest of the things, right, depending upon the requirement, we'll make those changes. So this is what really happens, that all we need to do is we have to just define say address 2 and mask 2. That means in our variable file there would be like say address 2, and we'll say 10.2.1.1, and there would be like mask 2, and we'll say 255.255.255.0. Now the interesting thing is, can I use something like this over here, that instead of this mask 2 can I use just 1? Yes, you can, no problems, you can. So if the mask is same, so then this configuration file, it would just understand one thing, that what's the value defined into my variable file. So it is completely fine if you don't write it, right? Any value, it can be reused. So even if you don't use it, and if you know that yes, mask is same, no worries, you don't have to define, right? You don't have to define this thing. So we just remove this thing. See, it makes things bit easier. So all those repetitive tasks, they can be made, say, very easy. So that's the advantage of templates, right? Theoretically, if you see that what are the advantages, of these templates. One biggest advantage would be that a very standard configuration is going to all devices, right? A very standard configuration is going, because you are using that template. Second, it makes your life much easier. It is easy deployment, because now you are actually, once you have configured the entire network, you are just punching those numbers into those variables, and it becomes much easier. And then you are saving those files, so in case if there is any troubleshooting is to be done, that troubleshooting also becomes easier, right? So this troubleshooting, that's also easy. And this wish was granted, that was for version tracking. So tracking the file version, that is easy. So we always know in the timeline that when these changes they were made, right? So when we said that yes, it is the Ansible, and in Ansible, which is like a configuration management tool or network management tool, right? So when we say it is configuration management tool for networks, there is like a paid version, because none of them, they are free. There is a charge associated with that. And Ansible, Puppet, and Chef. Honestly, these three are companies. These three are name of the companies. But many times, say their product is so good, so that product is identified by the name of the company, right? That is what really happens. So in case of say Ansible, say it is www.ansible.com. Now they make several products. This is a Linux based, right? It is Linux based and it is a Mac based. This particular product for the network management, it is available for Linux or Mac. So then what about Windows? Well, if you really want to implement it on Windows, some exercise is needed. It's like you have to create a Linux virtual machine and then you have to install Ansible on that, right? This is something which is needed. And there is a free version and there is a paid version. Now that paid version, it is like a flagship product of Ansible. It's called as the Ansible Tower. It's called as the Ansible Tower. This is the server version, right? So we'll come back to our discussion. Let's see something. Say here it is the Ansible.com. So if we see in these products, right here it is Ansible Tower. That's Ansible Tower. Now see, there is a 2-minute overview and then there is a 10-minute demo also. So you can always go to Ansible.com, go to products, Ansible Tower, and then there is a complete 10-minute demo in which you'll see that all these points whatsoever we discussed about, right, they are clearly defined.
It always seems like we're solving the same problems over and over. But imagine if you could solve a problem once. Automate your solution, then share it with your entire team so they can understand and easily do it again. You could end repetitive tasks, speed productivity, empower every member of your team, and scale your effort. Ansible is the engine that makes automation simple, and Ansible Tower is the framework that puts you in control. Ansible Tower is a powerful way to deploy your applications and your entire IT infrastructure. With a streamlined interface, integrated notifications, and enhanced permissions to help you scale the power of Ansible automation. You can roll out updates continuously, provisioning is simple, and configuration is easy. With Tower, the most complex tasks become a button click. Centralize and control your Ansible infrastructure with role-based access control, job scheduling, and graphical inventory management. And Tower's REST API and CLI make it easy to embed Tower into existing tools and processes. Today, no team has time for manual effort in solving the same problems again and again. When you automate, you accelerate. And when you scale automation across your company, anything is possible. Solve it, automate it, share it.
So that was Ansible. Okay, coming back to our topic. Let's say it said that role-based access, right? And then it said it uses those REST APIs. Yes, this is like a combination of all the topics what we learned till this point. Now it can create, if we talk about this, that what it can do, it can create text files. It can create those text files, but there are some names given to all these groups. One thing which is called as the playbooks. Now see, it is very logical. There is like playbooks, then you must have noticed that there is something like inventory, then we have got those templates, right? We had got those templates, and then finally there were variables. So these are the 4 types of text files. Now say templates and variables, they make sense. Template was something which was made by, say, those Jinja 2 language, right? Jinja 2 language, and we were making all those configurable variables. We were defining it over here, and using YAML we were making those variables, and that Ansible will use in the template, right? So all those variables which we define over here, they will be used by these template. In inventory, we can keep device host names. This is our inventory, so we know that how many devices we have got and what are their roles. This will make that point easy, that where we really want to make a specific group, and this particular configuration should go on to that group only. So this is the purpose of inventory. And as we said, we wished for that, see, once I have defined everything, then for rest of the configurations these things should go automatically and logically. So that is what is called as the playbooks. You have made all the efforts, you created all those, say you found all those songs, and then what you do, you create a playlist, and then that playlist when plays, you are at your comfort. You don't have to search for those songs again and again. So this is what is called as the playbook. Basically it is for action, and it is having all the logic what you used. So one interesting thing about is, this is something which is best. This is the best part of it. This is agentless architecture. What I mean by agentless architecture is that there is no need to run any code, no need to run any agent on any of your network devices. Nothing. That's your router 10, and you just feed this configuration and it will accept. That's it. You don't have to install anything new over here. No code, no agent, nothing is to be installed, because all those configurations, they'll be using SSH or netconf. So that new configuration, it would be gobbled up easily by this your device. So that's why Ansible is called as the push model. What we mean by push model is that it is the device won't be demanding anything. Yes, give me this configuration, or this is missing. No, nothing. Push model is you created a configuration, and that configuration would be pushed to the device. Once you are sending it, yes, it will accept it and it would work. So that's how the whole thing ran. So if I create something like summary, it would be like you build files. You build files. So that would be step number 1, right? And then in those files, which files you created? You created a playbook, right? You created a playbook. In this playbook, you put everything. There was inventory file, then there was template, and there was a variable file. So in inventory there were host names, in template using that Jinja 2, and in variables using YML, where you are feeding these variables to these templates. Everything up and ready. All right, you are happy and you run this playbook. So that would be the step 2. And your router who is over here, so this thing would be sent to him, and this is what is called as the push configuration. So it would be pushed to this router 10. That would be the step 3. And in case if there is any error, so then you can revert back. So this was in nutshell about the Ansible. Let's move on to our second candidate, and he is Puppet. Puppet is in fact name of the company, right? So this is like www.puppet.com. Again, it is on Linux. The flagship product of Puppet, is, it is called as Puppet Master. It is called as the Puppet Master. Same over here, you got a free product and you got a paid product. Now if you see the components, the important components of it. Now the name of the components, they are slightly different. They are a bit unique. But it is just a matter of name. Otherwise, technically, everything is quite similar. So what it did, that there is one component, it is called as the manifest. Think of manifest is a big container, right? It's a big container. In that you have got, say, resource, or let me change the order, right? Let's change the order. We write it in hierarchy. So in manifest, let's say there are modules. So there is a module. In this module, there is class. In this class, there is a resource. So this whole thing, it follows as if it is some registry. And it is the manifest. Over here also, it is the text file only which is created. And this text file, as it is said, that it is human readable. It is not like computer readable, it is human readable. So we understand this language just by looking at it. Just by looking at it, we understand this language. Right? And this language is by Puppet for the configuration. Right? This language is by Puppet. So they have got their own language. And the finally, using all these things, what would be created? Template. Yes, it would create a template, and that template is something which would be utilized. There is something what is called as the declarative language. What declarative language is? It would say that, well, everything whatsoever I am doing, all these manifest and module, class, resource, everything, my final aim is only one, that this should be the end state of the device. So in declarative language, it declares end state of the device, that this is where the device would end up. And when we are using this, that means we'll be requiring some agent. So agent is needed. In exam, there are all the chances that you will be asked about the differences between various these configuration management tools for network, right? So at the end we'll be creating a summary also, but right now we just understand that it is the agent based architecture. Now when we do say that this is the agent based architecture, that means not all Cisco devices would support. Yeah, truly not all Cisco devices they would support. So there has to be a solution for that. Now that solution is, let's say this is our router 1, and this router 1 is like we have got, there are some Cisco devices which are having internal agent. So in such case, so there is not a problem. Here is our manifest, right? It is our manifest and it is installed on the Puppet Master. It is installed on Puppet Master, and we via API we just send it to router 1, and router 1 is having that internal agent for this Puppet, and it would accept and things are done. Now let's say this router 2, it is someone who is not understanding this language. So in that case we might require what's called as the external agent. We install it on some machine, on some computer, and this would be talking to this router 2 via SSH, right? And over here it is the API which will be sending this configuration to this external agent, and then it would be injected into R2. If you are doing this thing, then this is like agentless operation of Puppet. So sometimes these words they look heavy, but when we understand that how it operates, it becomes so easy. Because if you see in the Cisco list, right, they say that you should be understanding about agent and agentless operation. You have to understand, say, what are the internal agents, but this is the thing, so easy. One very vital difference is that in case of Puppet, that was the push model, Puppet is a pull model. Yeah, Puppet is a pull model. What we understand by pull model is that as you build files, right, that was the manifest. That was the manifest. Manifest was like you created manifest using those templates, using those variables, resources, right, etc. So finally on your Puppet Master, that's your Puppet Master, on your Puppet Master you created manifest, and that was building files. You build files. I'm repeating certain keywords again and again because of, so that it is, say, cemented into your brain that when we talk about Puppet, so that means it is manifest, that means it is resource, that means it is a pull type of model, and their product is Puppet Master, right? So this is the first step. You build files, and then we have got our router. As this router is running agent, so first thing first, it is the agent would be started, and this agent would see that let me talk to this headquarter Puppet Master, and there are some changes missing into router 10, so pull the details. So this is the meaning, pull details. It will pull the details, and once the details arrive, they would be configured. So that's the fourth step. So thus this is pull configuration. So it is exactly like, first it will say that okay, this is the current configuration and what are the details. So those details would be extracted and then it would be configured on the router 10. So that is how this Puppet will work. Now if you see, just show you. Say learn more. This is puppet.com. Say products, and these are Puppet Enterprise, Puppet Remediate. And see, this is continuous delivery, continuous compliance, incident remediation. Remediation in case anything goes wrong. So it should be able to fix that break, and the configuration management. All right, coming back to our topic. The third network management or the configuration management tool over here, and that is Chef. Oh yeah. And when we say that Chef, so actually if you really cook food, so the procedure which you follow, they will be following almost the same procedure. So this is like www.chef.io. Yeah, just take care. This is not .com, this is .io. Now this is a software package. This is a software package, and there are many products of this Chef. It is the Chef Automate. This is their flagship product. This is their main product. It is available in two forms. One, if it is standalone, so then they have named it like Chef Zero, when it is like a standalone product. Else the second product, it is based on the client server. So it means there is a client, and so it means there is a server and there are clients. So this means what? Agent would be needed. Yes, agent would be needed, because whenever there is something like client server, so there would be the agent. Right. So let's see how it works. So once you have installed it, once you have installed Chef, so then there would be again the formation of all those text files, and these text files, they will be like this. One, the resource. What this resource is, say we just for time being forget about this. Let's say we want to cook something. So as soon as you start that video about, say, cooking any specific recipe, so first thing what they say, that okay, there would be ingredients. So there would be need for, say, this atta and this masala and this, that, everything. So it will tell about the ingredients, what would be needed, right? Then there would be a recipe, and in that recipe they'll tell you कि अच्छा पहले पानी गरम करो for this much time, and then put this atta, and then put this namak and mirch and this, that, everything, right? So it is the recipe. And then you have got a cookbook. In cookbook there would be several recipes. It is the entire book. And then there can be something like that. Let's say you want to make a complete lunch. So in that lunch there are 5 items. So you will make a run list by yourself. You'll say that let me mark in this cookbook that this is how roti is made, this is how that sabji is made, this is how the dal is made. Means I'm not insulting anyone that you don't know how to create a roti, dal or sabji, but the thing is that let's say you want to create something special, so you'll say that it is the recipe number 11, recipe number 42 and recipe number say 67, and these are the things which we'll be making today. So that is what is called as the run list, right? You have learnt chef. The only change is that all those ingredients, the name over given here is resource. Yeah, makes sense, because as such ingredients and resource, they are one and the same thing. But over here we'll not be having those mirch masala and everything, we'll be having all those config commands, configuration commands. So these are the set of commands which will be needed to cook this particular recipe. Rest of the names, they are absolutely same. So it is the resource, that is first text file, then recipe. Yes, recipe is nothing but what will you do with these resources, in which order you will be using. So this is like using resource right, using resource. Then you have got a cookbook. It means today what you really want to do, because this is for easier management as it is having all the functions in it. So you select from this cookbook what you really want to run, and that recipe you'll run. And then you have selected some recipes by yourself for some specific operation. So this run list is nothing but it is the ordered list of recipes to run. So simple, right? And that thing would run on a specific device. Agent is needed? Definitely. Agent is definitely needed. Right? Without agent, this thing really won't work. Again, it is based on the principle, and that is what is called as the pull configuration. Right? This is pull configuration. Now, there is a difference. In Puppet, we said that in case if device is not understanding our language, no problem, put an external device, right? This is what we were doing in the agentless operation. Yeah, do you remember that? This is like R10, and then we put that external agent and we said that, chalo bhai, you understand this language, right? And then tell R10 in a simple language. So it is like our agent was absorbing this configuration, understanding that specific language. The difference is this is not possible in case of chef. Chef said take it or leave it. What chef said? That it is compulsory that chef, it should be running on every client or every device. I would say every device. It should run on every device. So this is chef client code. This chef client code, it should be running on every device. Nothing like this external agent wala business. No, nothing like that. So obviously not all Cisco devices, they will be supported by this. Not all. There are some, but not all. So this is one of the major reason that when you'll see in real world, it is the Ansible and the Puppet. They are used much more. Right? They are widely used. Chef, it becomes like a specialty. So to make things much easier, let's do a very quick comparison between all three of them. So here is the Ansible, that's the Puppet, and that's the chef. This is vital for the exam. because this any of the question can be asked from this point. So here is the action. That's the action. So action file names. So file names which will really trigger Ansible, Puppet and Chef. So over here we called it a playbook, right? You remember it was a playbook. In Puppet the name was manifest. These are like keywords you must remember. And in Chef, yes, it was like that a recipe, right? Recipe run list. Regarding the protocol, which protocols they will be using, this uses SSH or netconf. That's the reason that there is no need for any agent. So let's put it over here. That is the agent needed? No, agent is not needed over here. And in all these cases they use HTTP REST, right? They use over here also it is HTTP REST. In case of Puppet, do you need this agent? Well, you need it, but there is a solution in case if you are not having, and that is external agent can be deployed. In this case, so yes, it is compulsorily needed, right? Finally, the difference between their method of action, how they really work. This is a push, this is pull, and this is pull. Putting in simple words, whenever the agent is there, yes, it is the agent who will be pulling the configuration. So this was about the fourth and the final session of configuration management tool for networks. Thank you so much and see you soon.